Kia ora, good evening, vanakkam, vandanam, namaskaram to everyone. I am Selva, and this is your Trendy Thalaiva Selva show. Today, I'm just gonna like talk you through some information that I gathered for all of you guys for this week. I hope you all find this information to be useful, and of course, you all are like welcome to add your comments, ask any questions to our Gmail address, which is indialivepresenters@gmail.com. In case if you want us to, or like want me to do something specifically on a certain topic, or like anything that you want to know, please do let us know. And also, in the comments, share your thoughts, opinion, feedback, and we are happy to actually take that into account. Last week, I, along with Herman, had a interesting conversation about how my life shaped up, what I've been doing, and also we shared an interesting information about me moving to Melbourne. So this week I am in Melbourne. It's been like amazing so far. The city is wonderful. So many tall and high-rise buildings. There's a lot of events, things happening around in Melbourne, and the weather also has been like great, pretty much like different to what I used to do, or the weather from Christchurch. It was cold, and we were just getting into spring. So Melbourne is also getting into spring, and then this week is like getting warmer and warmer. Today is like 29 degrees, which is like really good. The sun is out, and I've been just exploring Melbourne, walking across the street, and I also found an accommodation for myself. That's a bit of like personal update. Let's just go into the show. Last week I also promised you all that I'll perhaps like start the show with introducing one Tirukural. Just to give you a bit of introduction about Tirukural, it was written 2000 years ago by a saint called Tiruvalluvar. Interestingly, Tirukural has like 1333 verses, which are of two lines each. And each of the 10 verses is like compiled into a specific topic. And Thirukural has like three major subdivisions, and each subdivision has certain topics. Under each topic, there has been like 10 verses. Just to give you a comparison, it's very similar to how Kabir Das's Doha looks like. The interesting component about Thirukural is that it actually shares a lot of life lessons. If anyone wants to follow a life, that they can live, they want to live on a really, really ethical way, Tirukural guides that. So I'm happy to share like one verse of the Tirukural every week. And also share the details of the meaning of like what that Kural means to all of you. The Kural today I want to share is my personal favorite, the one that I follow very closely and is close to my heart. It is actually Inna Seidare Oruthal, Avar Nana Nannayam Seiduvidal. That's the verse in Tamil. I'll just give you a brief, translation of what that means. The verse actually means that there might be people around you who might have done things wrong to you, or like who might have let you down at places. The best revenge that one can actually do to them is to do something good back to them. And then by doing that, putting them to a shame. Um, so it is basically trying to tell that you mean well for others, you actually do well for others, and then that actually is a lesson or learnings that they take out of whatever you did back. There is a short story that I wanted to share, particularly with respect to this Tirukural. There was a saint who was actually, giving a lecture to a public. And there was one guy who was like really angry at the saint, and what he did was to pick up a stone from that gathering and then threw it back at the saint. So the saint actually picked up the stone, and every public was like so angry on this guy, and they started to go and create ruckus and wanting to beat that guy out. But then the saint stopped everyone and then said that I'm going to give him a fruit back. So the public was like really puzzled. They asked that this guy actually hit you out with a stone, and you're giving back giving back fruit to this guy. What do you mean? So the saint actually answered that if you throw a stone on a tree, the tree is actually giving you a fruit back. A tree doesn't have knowledge, but it is actually giving you fruit. I have knowledge, so I should be doing not just giving fruit, but also better thing. And what a fitting way, or what a fitting story that explains this Tirukural really, really well. So the moral here is that if somebody is like doing bad to you, somebody is doing wrong to you, if you want to take the best revenge, do something good back to them. And good has like a lot of ripple effect. And it is actually something that has a potential to reach many more people. So, without further delay, let's just go into a show and talk about what's trending across the globe. It is really, really a sad news to start with. The global trend this week has like a lot of sad newses, and I want to acknowledge and also pay my respects to everyone who is suffering a major earthquake in Morocco. A couple of days back, there was a major earthquake that happened in Morocco. And that's very close to my heart because I have visited the city Marrakech a couple of years ago, maybe like five, six, no, maybe more than that, somewhere in 2015, 2016. And that city of Marrakech is like really, really close to my heart. They are people who are like warm, welcoming, and then have been like really, really kind when I was there for one of my archery competitions. So the death toll has almost rise to 3,000. So the death toll is 3,000, and then the people who are injured out is more than at least 5,530 as per the news sources. So there were like more than 3,000 people who have lost their life. We actually pay our due respects to them, and then most likely that the other people who are still suffering damage might probably be rescued sooner. And there are like aids that are like reaching out to the people from all across the globe. And if you're interested in contributing, please do so, and keep them in our prayers. And we hope that everyone has a speedy recovery, and the families of the people who lost their lives will be able to come out and then establish themselves. People from earthquake from Christchurch might be able to closely relate with earthquakes, because these are something that many of our people have experienced firsthand, and they can actually empathize with the pain. In other news, North Korea actually launches a possible ballistic missile on Wednesday. So this was a tweet that was made by Ministry of Defense of Japan. So the missile launch comes as North Korean leader Kim Jong-un arrives in Russia, where he is expected to meet the Russian President Vladimir Putin. A short while after the initial news broke, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff confirmed they had detected two short-range ballistic missiles fired from the Sunan area in the East Sea. So the statement they made were like, our military has strengthened its surveillance and vigilance in preparation for additional launches while maintaining a full preparedness while working closely with the US. So that's what the press said. Um, and then in another interesting news, there was a stolen Van Gogh painting that got recovered. So there is a Dutch art detective, and he has helped in recovering this missing Van Gogh painting that was stolen from Single-Laren Museum, which is in east of Amsterdam, in March 2020. So it's been like 3 years. This Dutch detective actually carried out an investigation and then have been able to actually bring that back. So the Dutch detective art crime detective's name is Arthur Brand, who spent decades tracking down some of the world's greatest masterpieces when he made this announcement on Tuesday. Um, Another devastating news for the week is about the floods that are happening in Libya. And it is feared that more than 5,200 people are dead from the floods that has recently happened in Libya. These are perhaps the news that we generally don't get to hear on our mainstream media. Libya is a small country in Africa, and it's also one of the countries that are like really poor. So more than 5,200 people are believed to have died in this devastating floods. These floods happen in the eastern Libya. And this was confirmed by one of their spokesperson for the Ministry of Interior. It is also supposed to be believed that more than 10,000 people are missing. And Libya's envoy for International Federation of Red Cross and Red Cross Crescent Society are actually, trying to help out. And they are actually gathering this news and sharing with people. And this death toll is like really, really huge. And our thoughts and prayers with people of Libya. In another news, 22 warplanes and 20 warships are spotted near Taiwan. And then Kim Onjun from North Korea arrives in Russia ahead of Putin's summit. Those are the global trending news for you folks. And then I thought it would be a good topic for us to, delve into about New Zealand elections this week. And I've gathered some interesting information for all of you because we are going to have our elections soon in the month of October. I'm pretty sure that many of you might be preparing to vote. So it would be good to understand that history behind New Zealand elections, and also like look into some interesting facts. So bear with me for a moment.
Okay,
Sorry.
I found this on the web for how New Zealand elections, and then also like to look into some interesting facts with me for a moment.
Okay, I think my city popped up. Sorry about that, folks. I'll make sure that we I keep my city silent when I do the show from next week. So the first general election in New Zealand took place in 1853, making it one of the earliest countries to adopt a representative democracy. India is also a democratic nation. Initially, only male British subjects who met certain property qualifications were allowed to vote. However, over time, suffrage was extended to include women and indigenous Maori people. I also will give you some interesting facts about like the women's suffrage movement and all later in the show. But going ahead, the electoral system in New Zealand is based on a mixed member proportional MMP representation, where voters cast two votes, one for a political party and the other for a local representative. The major political parties include New Zealand's Labour Party, which is the current ruling party, the New Zealand National Party, the current opposition party, and the Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand. There are some other political parties like TOP, ACT, and New Zealand First, and there is also parties that represent Maori people. In terms of New Zealand elections and New Zealand history, it's also important for us to understand the Treaty of Waitangi. So, what is Treaty of Waitangi? The Treaty of Waitangi is a significant document in New Zealand's history. It was signed on February 6th, 1840, between the representatives of the British Crown and many Maori chiefs. The treaty was aimed at establishing a relationship between the British government and Maori tribes, recognizing Maori ownership and rights over the land, and granting Maori people the rights and privileges of British subjects. However, there are differing interpretation of the treaty's wording in English and Maori, leading to ongoing debates and legal disputes regarding its meaning and implementation. The treaty's principles, such as partnerships, protection, and participation, have become fundamental to New Zealand's constitutional framework, guiding the relationship between the government and Maori. There are a couple of sentiments that I want to highlight from the treaty. Is in the late 20th century and the earlier 21st century, New Zealand embarked on a process of treaty settlements to address historical grievances and breaches of the Treaty of Waitangi. These settlements involve negotiation between the Crown and Maori groups, aiming to provide redress for land confiscation, breaches of the treaty, and cultural and economic revitalization. The settlements typically include financial compensation, the return of culturally significant lands, and the establishment of co governance arrangements in certain areas. The treaty settlement process continues today as many Maori groups are still engaged in negotiations or awaiting resolutions of their historical claims. If we go back to history, Maori people has been like one of the um, early people who were living in New Zealand, and then there was like the Britishers came in, etc. Right, so Treaty of Waitangi was established to make sure that people get what they deserve and what's rightfully theirs. um, so if you go back, as I said, I'm going to give you some, interesting information about the New Zealand's suffrage and stuff. And an interesting fact is that New Zealand is the first country in the world to grant women the right to vote in national elections. How historical and how powerful is that, to be able to live in a country that actually was the first to exercise this equality of giving women the right to vote. And I'm actually going to give you some information about some of the significant, information about the significant milestone, which is in the late 19th century. The women's suffrage movement gained momentum around the world as women began to advocate for the right to participate in political decision making. Earlier, it was men who made the decision that they will decide that who will be the next ruling power party, or made a significant role in deciding the government. uh, However, New Zealand played a pioneering role in that entire women's suffrage movement. In the year 1893, after years of campaigning led by suffragists and women rights activists across the globe, the New Zealand Parliament actually passed the Electoral Act, which granted women the right to vote in parliamentary elections. This made New Zealand the first self governing country in the world to extend the voting rights to women. How cool is that? I really appreciate New Zealand for doing that, and we have always been progressive. And this proves that why New Zealand is such a progressive place to live. The movement for women's suffrage in New Zealand was driven by various organizations and notable figures. The Women's Christian Temperance Union and the New Zealand branch of Women's Social and Political League were particularly active in advocating for women's suffrage. The suffragists employed a range of strategy during the movement, right? So these are some lessons that we should be learning from them, including public meetings, petition campaigns, and the distribution of pamphlets, individually to people and also to household, to raise the awareness and gather support for their cause. They emphasized the importance of women's voices in shaping legislation, promoting equality, and addressing social issues. The successful passage of the Electoral Act of 1893 was met with celebration and marked a significant milestone for the women's rights movement worldwide, not just in New Zealand, right? So it also inspired and influenced the suffrage movement in other countries, leading to further progress in expanding women's voting rights globally. How cool is that? Following New Zealand's lead, several other countries gradually granted women the right to vote. And leading that is South Australia in 1894, a year after that happened in New Zealand, Australia in 1902, Finland in 1906, and Norway in 1913 were among the early adopters of women's suffrage. However, it took many more years for women's suffrage to become widespread, with some countries not granting women the right to vote until the mid 20th century. Even today, there are like atrocities committed against women in many countries, which we get to see and hear. And I'm pretty sure that all the countries eventually will make sure that every human is treated equally. Um, which also brings me that probably, I'll probably share one more Tirukural next week, which has something in relations with practicing equality and equity. Remind me of that. So the suffrage movement in New Zealand had a profound impact on the broader women's right movement globally. Here are some ways in which New Zealand's achievement influenced and inspired the fight for women's rights in other countries. I'm just going to give those facts as well. So, New Zealand's success in granting women the right to vote served as a powerful example for suffrage movements in other countries. It demonstrated that change was possible and encouraged activists worldwide to intensify their efforts. We also call this as the chaos theory. The chaos theory is like pretty interesting because it actually goes back and tells that somewhere, a butterfly is actually flapping its wing, and because of that, there is a cyclone that's getting caused somewhere, or like there's a wind that's blowing somewhere. There's a flower that's actually, there's a breeze that's hitting the flower on the tree somewhere. So every single movement, every single thing that is actually happening in the world is inspirational and encourages others to participate. So this women's suffrage actually inspired and motivated many more countries and many more people to participate. The suffrage movement in New Zealand also set a precedent for the legislative process on women's rights. It showed that societies could evolve and adopt more inclusive policies, challenging the prevailing notions of women's role in public life. If you go back in the history long ago, there has been like a lot of discrimination against women in general, and I think a lot of change that happened was inspired by this particular movement, which I'm really proud of. And then New Zealand suffragists established connection with women right activists in other countries, and these networks facilitated the exchange of ideas, strategies, and tactics between each other, contributing to the growth of global women's movement everywhere. Um, and then the success of the suffrage movement in New Zealand also brought international attention to the cause of women's rights, and media coverages and discussions surrounding New Zealand's achievement helped raise awareness and support for suffrage in other parts of the world. New Zealand's example also created momentum and a sense of urgency within the broader women's rights movement, which also led the activists in different countries who drew inspiration from New Zealand's success and redoubled their efforts to secure women's suffrage in their own nations. New Zealand suffrage movement contributed to the development of legal precedents that recognized women's right and equality. The successful campaign paved the way for subsequent legal reforms and advancements in the areas such as poverty rights, education, employment opportunities for women. And then New Zealand's achievement also became a symbol of progress and testament to the power of collective action. It demonstrated that social change could be achieved through peaceful means and encouraged women around the world to continue their struggle for equality. Um, in summary, suffrage movement in New Zealand had a transformative impact on the broader women's right. It inspired emboldenedness activists globally, leading to significant advancements in women and broader gender equality efforts in numerous countries. Great. It was like really inspiring for myself when I did this research for all of you to read about like what all these campaigns bought as results. It was inspiring to understand the struggle so many people had to go through for New Zealand to be able to be the first nation to grant that voting right to women. Um, Another interesting fact that I wanted to share, New Zealand so far has had 40 prime ministers, including Chris Hipkins, who is our apologies, Chris Hipkins, who is our current prime minister, and the longest serving prime minister in New Zealand's history is Richard Sedan. He held this position of being a prime minister for a total of 13 years, from 1893 until his death in 1906. Sedan was known for his strong leadership, and played a significant role in shaping New Zealand's political landscape during his tenure. Cool. Now, why we were talking about all of these things? It is to inspire all of you to go and vote. And speaking of that, the voting in New Zealand starts on Monday, the 2nd of October, and is actually going to happen until 14th of October. At this election, you will get to vote for parties and candidates you want to represent you in parliament. And it's important for every one of you to exercise your right so that you can actually demand the parties to deliver the results that you want to see in the upcoming years. So please do take some time, think about it, read through the policies that are presented by the candidates, ask them the right questions, understand what sort of commitments they are making to people, understand how they are actually going to make our lives easier and simpler in the future, and then go out and vote. On the election day, which is the Saturday, 14th of October, all voting places will be open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. You should also go and look for yourself in the New Zealand's voting website for you to be able to understand how to vote. And I think you all must have enrolled yourself for voting. If you have not done so, please make sure that you enroll yourself before the next elections at least, because the deadline for enrolling for the current election is now over, which was the 10th of September. To enroll and vote, you must be 18 years or older. You must be a New Zealand citizen or a permanent resident, and have lived in New Zealand for 12 months or more continuously at some time in your life. If you have got this qualifications, you are entitled to vote. That brings me to the end of this summary of New Zealand elections and stuff. It's really interesting, to talk about elections, to talk about like politics. We definitely would want you all to actually surface the issues that you're facing, any questions that you've got for any related to any policies, any changes that you may want to see, from the people who are going to stand in elections and who are going to represent you in the next, parliamentary term. So please do surface them. Please do post them in your comments in the comment section, so that we can know that what you're looking for, and we also can figure out if there is an opportunity for us to share that with the relevant stakeholders. But my request to all of you is to please make sure that you make some time for yourself to go and vote and make your voice count. If you don't vote for yourself, and if you expect a change, probably that's not supposed to happen. So please participate, please exercise your right, and please vote. The next section, I'm gonna just give you a brief insights into what's trending on Twitter in India. When we speak about India, there's like a lot happening, and of course, India is such a big country with so many diverse things happening all around the world. All around India, there are like a lot of discussions that are currently going on. So what's trending in India right now on Twitter is about an Apple event, and then of course Asia Cup is happening. So cricket is the next major trending topic, and there's also an interesting trend that's going on, which is tips for happy marriage. Someone tell me that. Anyone who recently got married, I think you should go and read that. And I also think that anyone who got married, not recent or like old, should probably go and read those. There's some interesting tips, guys and girls. And there is also iPhone 15 Plus that's trending. I think it's supposed to be launched somewhere soon, if I'm not somewhere in September. So yeah, go check out that. And then there is also Ahmedabad Files that's currently trending on Twitter India. um, and I think there are like a lot of sporting events and activities that's happening across the globe. I think I just wanted to share about the Rugby World Cup that's going on in France. Unfortunately for us, All Blacks actually had an opening match against France that we lost, and we lost to a score of like 27-13, and France defeated, and New Zealand as first match is lost, which doesn't mean that we still are like out, or like we have not lost our scope. Let's actually root for our All Blacks, and then make sure that they make it to the finals. Italy bet Namibia with a score of 52-8. Ireland bet Romania to the score of 82-8, and Australia bet Georgia for a score of 35-15, and England bet Argentina to the score of 27-10. Japan against Chile. Japan won the match by 42-12. South Africa and Scotland. South Africa bet Scotland with a score of 18-3. And a match of Wales against Fiji. Wales won the match with a score of 32-26. Um, and cricket, of course, one of the most favorite game of all our Indian fans. Asia Cup is into Super Four stage. There are four teams that made it to the Super Four stage. That's Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and India. So far, there has been four matches that are completed in the Super Four stage, where Pakistan beat Bangladesh by 7 wickets. And then another match between Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. Sri Lanka won by 21 runs. The first team to make it to the finals of this Asia Cup is India, and India had like so amazing two thumping victories on back-to-back days against one of our arch rivals Pakistan, and then against Sri Lanka as well. India won the match by 228 runs, which is the highest margin for India against Pakistan in a one-day international, where Virat Kohli scored a century, and then KL Rahul also scored a century. India also bet Sri Lanka, and India won by 41 runs. And there's one man who really performed well in both the matches, who is Kuldeep Yadav. Collectively, he took 9 wickets in both the matches. And then and the new trending things around the movies, I'm not sure if you all know the news already, which I think pretty much like you all might know. Javan is actually making and breaking box office records and trends. The movie is released pan India in multiple languages, with a lot of crew that came in from the south of India. One of my favorite heroines, Nayanthara, is in there. Shah Rukh Khan, of course, how amazing that man can be. And it's really cool to see that a movie is like doing really, really well after so long. It's said that it has got like all the commercial elements for a mass masala movie, and then Shah Rukh Khan actually pulling the show as if he's currently repeating to prove that why he is one of the superstars in India. We wish that it actually goes on to do really, really well, and then break more records and set new trends, which also brings me to talk about our Thalaiva Rajinikanth's recent movie trailer. That's again setting trends in the Tamil Nadu and global box office for the Kollywood industry, which is the Tamil Nadu movie industry. Jailer, as far as I know, has almost crossed 550 crores, one of the highest grosser Tamil film in recent times, and which also, makes me believe that age is just a number. Like, Rajnikant is like more than 65-year old, and he is like breaking trends and records. And imagine, like, what we all can do. And then we just went to IMDb to figure out what's actually the most anticipated new Indian movies and shows that are going to come up, for you to present the current trend in the movies. Interestingly, Mark Antony, which is a Tamil movie, is like trending in number one in IMDb as one of the most anticipated new Indian movie. Interesting. I'll be interested in looking at that movie. It's actually about time travel, and if you have an opportunity to watch when it is in theaters, the second highest is Leo, which is also a South Indian movie, a Tamil movie by actor Vijay. He's considered to be one of the superstar in that league of like superstar like in Tamil Nadu. And then the third trending movie is Thank You for Coming, followed by Salar, which is interestingly Prabhas's movie with the director of KGF. If you had look at a trailer, it's actually giving KGF's vibes, but I think that it's going to be different. Let's wait and watch. And then at 5 is Bombay Miri John. At 6 is Chandramukhi 2. At 7 is Fukre 3. I recently happened to watch the trailer of Fukre 3. It's really hilarious. You're going to get to see the return of Chucha and Boli Bashan. And then, interestingly, see that the fun they're going to recreate for us. And 8, it's a Telugu movie, Skanda, The Attacker. I think it's Boyapati Srini directed movie. And the trailer is like amazing. Boyapati Srini is like one of the mass directors who want to show the heroes as like someone out of the world, can do anything and everything, can attack like 100 people at a single time. And then there is a serious movie which is at number 9, which is Mission Rajnikanth, Akshay Kumar's next one, I suppose. And then at 10, it is Suki. So that brings me to the end to kind of like a wrap for today's topics and trends. Apparently, like if I want to go back and then summarize about today, folks, um, um, we saw some devastating news across the world. Most of this could have potentially happened because of climate change, the sustainability related topics that we get to hear. So I think perhaps I would want to use next week to talk about climate change and some of the global impacts that climate change has brought. And if you want me to address anything specific related to climate change, and anything that you may want to know about, like carbon emissions, offsetting, how different countries are like managing their emissions or performing against emission measurements, please do share them as your comment or like thought or feedback. And also like please do send us an email at indialivepresenters@gmail.com. It was really what do I say, an interesting thing for me to put together this content for all of you today. Honestly speaking, I never had this information, or like I never had an understanding about all of these things such a deep way. So in that way, you all have helped me learn something, and also share that with all of you. In which I take a pride in, right? And I'm pretty sure that as we go forward, there are going to be like a lot more learnings that I will also be getting in this process of like taking these things through to you. As I said last week, like learning is a two-way process, and I kind of like thoroughly enjoy this exercise. So thank you all so much for being a part of this show and being patient and listening to me. I know the show could have actually brought you the information that you already knew, or like some new information that you never knew. And if there is something that I want to create through this show, and particularly with respect to this episode, if you all can exercise your vote and then go and vote on New Zealand's national election day, and contribute to deciding who our next prime minister is going to be. I think that is one of the success of this particular episode, according to me. Again, thank you all so much. I'm just going to sign off now. You all are with Trendy Thalaiva Selva. Watch me every week again at 6 p.m. New Zealand time on Wednesdays. And we also have got like some amazing presenters who are doing shows on other days as well. So please do tune in and then follow our Facebook page, Twitter page, Instagram page. And don't forget to share your likes, comments, subscribe. Yeah, that's what YouTubers say, right? And send us an email as at indialivepresenters@gmail.com. And I'm signing off today. Bye and have a good night.